Curiosos, científicos, sistemáticos y tecnológicos, experticos, algorítmicos, nerds. Tengo una habilidad para transformar un programa, una función o una simple conexión. Cualquier día sin demora, menos viernes a última hora. Cambios realizados, descanso no asegurado. Curiosas, científicas, sistemáticas y tecnológicas, experticas, algorítmicas, nerds. Tengo un poder, el poder de entender lo que pasa en la red, complejos códigos descifrar, pero no siempre tengo backup. Por la noche de madrugada, si hay llamadas desesperadas, seres esenciales y de guardia incondicionales. Científiques, sistemátiques y tecnológiques, expertiques, algorítmiques, nerds. Tengo una capacidad para almacenar datos útiles, administrar, corroborar, copiar y pegar. Hay películas que adoramos y muñecos que coleccionamos, todos clasificados, minuciosamente ordenados. Curiosos, científicas, sistemáticas y tecnológicas, experticas, algorítmicas, nerds. Eléctricos, específicos, astronómicos, empíricos, informáticos, perseveránticos, saber poder ser nerd. Saber ser nerd, saber poder ser nerd.
Volvemos nosotros después.
Buenas, ¿cómo están? Estamos acá a encarar una entrevista espectacular que venimos palpitando hace semanas. Vamos a estar hablando con John Romero, director, diseñador, programador y desarrollador en la industria de videojuegos. Lo conocerán por ser creador de el Doom, Wolfenstein, Quake y id Software. Hoy también está con su propia empresa, Romero Games, así que estamos todos súper contentos de tener esta oportunidad y que ustedes también puedan estar acá con nosotros preguntándole cosas a una de las personas que realmente más admiro en lo que es todo el mundo de sistemas y videojuegos. Así que sin más preámbulos, acá tenemos a John Romero. Hi John, how are you? Thank you very much for participating today in Nerdearla.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I'm excited to answer the questions.
Well, I was telling people a little about who you are, about how you started being a game designer, and you started very young, right?
Yeah, I started when I was 11 years old, and it was a total accident as well.
Did you ever imagine like being 11, like this was what you wanted to do, like for the rest of your life, doing games?
Yeah, it was probably only like say when I was 14 years old that I knew like that's all I'm gonna do.
And maybe you could tell us, for the people that really don't know about your backstory, what was the first game you ever designed?
Jeez. When I was 11, I went to a university and I taught myself how to program on the mainframe computer there. And the way that happened was totally crazy and random, and it just worked out that way because I was interested. But that's like when you take what happened, I went to a university when I was 11 and I self-taught myself to code. And because I had played the Crowther and Woods Colossal Cave Adventure at that university, and it was such an amazing game, I decided that I wanted to try and make one myself. So I just started making a small adventure game as I was learning how to program in BASIC on this mainframe. So it was a little adventure game.
That is great, and I want to make a point on how you said that you like taught yourself on how to design games and how to program, and I think that is very valuable. Mostly because like nowadays things are like changing a lot in the industry. Maybe it was like groundbreaking at your time, like to not go to college or start like a formal education. And nowadays people are like, okay, I can learn this on the internet. There's a lot of tutorials and courses that I can go to. And I think that's amazing that we have like people like you that have gotten so far being like self-taught.
Yeah, the hard thing about when I was learning is that there weren't books on how to make games. Like that didn't exist. There were books on how to program a computer, you know. And one of the really cool things back then was that you could actually in high school or / secondary school, when in that school you could take programming classes, which back in the 80s, you know, like even today, you can't take secondary classes that have to do with programming. I don't know why they're waiting until you get into college, but nowadays the fact that the internet is full of free learning, completely free learning, really, really good learning, and the fact that there are so many degree programs out there to learn how to make games, you know, like everything is out there for anyone who's interested. You don't need permission to make games. So, and if you do, I give you all permission right now. You know, start tonight, go home, get on the internet, figure out, like, do you want to model 3D models? Do you want to animate? Do you want to do textures? Do you want to program? Do you want to do audio? Do you want to write? All those things, you can start doing that tonight and start making a game, you know, by yourself. And then maybe you can start putting a team together. But it doesn't take too much to start doing it, especially with today's engines where you can just drag and drop a game, basically.
Mentioning that, I have a question that one of our viewers sent us a couple of days ago. He was asking, where is it? Just a second. I have so many questions and notes here.
So many questions.
Yeah. Okay, here. In your book, you told us that the story about how you had to work around memory limitations and how at the time you developed Doom and other games, if that's still the case for current development, or is it not important now because of modern technology and how there are many engines right now that people could use to create video games?
There's always limitations, no matter what, you know, and the thing is, the limitations are very small because now computers have so much memory. But if you can imagine making like a World of Warcraft style giant game, you know, the engines that are out there today you don't click a button and say, I want to make an MMO with a giant world. You have to figure it out. You know, you have to figure out how to use that engine to create that giant world. So that limitation is there, and you have to figure out how to solve it. But you can solve it. You know, you want to make a multiplayer game. Okay, you can actually start up a project in Unreal and say, I want it to be multiplayer, and everything in that game is multiplayer. But the way it works, and, you know, working smoothly and all that, that's a lot of extra work to figure that out. So the limitations, you know, are mostly, I think a lot of them are self-imposed. You know, people, if you don't want to spend the time to learn everything that's possible about what you want to do, then you will have limitations. But there is, you know, the technology that we do have today really does let you do a lot. You know, if you're expecting people to have 4 gigs of RAM, but you made a game that really wants 10 gigs of RAM, then, you know, you got to work within the limitations of people's computers.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you've said. And going back a little with this about being self-taught and just doing stuff instead of just studying, like go do and fail. When you started as a young game designer, which were the games that really were a big challenge for you when you started, and what were games that you looked up to because of how they had solved some technical limitations?
There are so many of those. Like when I was learning how to code on the Apple II, there were several programmers who were the people that I really paid attention to, and that was Nasser Jabeli, Bill Budge, Dan Gorlin, Doug Smith, Paul Stevenson, Dan Schroeder. You know, there's a really long list of amazing programmers from the 80s who wrote really excellent games that were very technical and difficult to replicate. And because there weren't people around me that knew how to code that I could compare myself against, I had to compare myself against published commercial programs. So that actually turned out to be a really good thing. If I can't make something look as good as the stuff that's being sold, I haven't done it. You know, I haven't learned enough. So I had to keep on learning and trying. So you know, those people, I could run a game that I didn't know who wrote it, but as soon as it came up on the screen, I could probably tell you who wrote it before the credits hit, just because of the technique and the style and the look and everything. It's almost like you can tell what painting a painter, you know, like which painter made a certain painting because of what it looks like. It's their style. It's the content. You know, it's you know, the color. You know, there's a lot of things that kind of give that away, and it was like that back then as well. But yeah, there were a lot of heroes to look up to back then.
I think it's very interesting how you really went and like did a benchmark on games that had like technical difficulties that would be like valuable for your work, and it really helped you from what you've told on, for example, how you redid the Super Mario game, and then all of those steps eventually took you to Doom and Wolfenstein and 3D games as we know them today, and lighting. And I imagine that there were a lot of failures in the way to getting there. Which was the one that frustrated you the most?
I don't know if I've been really frustrated at any failures. It was because it's something that you learn something from it. You know, it's also like defining what failure is also very subjective, because
yes, it is.
You know, on a commercial level, like money making level, I could say that most of the games I made early on were failures because they didn't make a bunch of money. Like, out of the amount of games I've made, let's say there are at least 40 more games that I made that never launched. They never shipped. They didn't go anywhere. So I've got 40 games I've made that haven't done anything. And you could say those are failures. They weren't, like, some of them may not have been finished. Definitely some were failures, just because we couldn't launch them. And there's a lot to learn from every single one of those. So it's like, what is the value of that? You know, there is value in learning what not to do.
Yeah.
You know, especially on your way to success, you're learning what you shouldn't do because it wasn't successful. So don't do it with the next game. Take another tack. Keep looking at successful examples and keep trying to get close to, you know, nailing everything being done right. A lot of the games I made early on were purposely made so I could learn a specific thing in game development. And as soon as I made the game, I really didn't need anyone else to see that game. I just needed to make that game. And then I would start on the next game. And the next game, I would add something new that I needed to learn. And at some point, it's like, this game's good enough to send out to try and get published, you know? And I think the very first software company that I started, I was 14. And I had that little game company until my second company that I started in 1988. So it was probably only, I think, 6 years that I had that company, and I sold 15 games through that company to various magazines and disc retailers and that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't say that they were failures because they actually were accepted by somebody as publishable stuff.
Yeah, I mean, what I was saying, like with failures, like in the process to getting there, because I am one to believe that the road to success is paved with failures. If you don't fail, if you don't make mistakes, you're never going to learn, and you really get like input that you need to get like to the next step. And I find it very interesting that you mentioned about money-making games, and I find it really ironic because you launched Doom as freeware, and 25 years later, it's a huge success. Everyone knows what Doom is. There's movies, there's video games that were made, books. Yeah, you have everything, toys, collectibles. And I find it amazing that you're
not just buying one other game as a sequel, but they're buying 2 sequels. And it feels like value when you price it that way. But giving people a way to play something before they buy it is the most fair way of selling something. You know, let them see if they like it. If they hate it, you know, don't spend any money on it. It didn't hurt anything. So that approach that's why, you know, on mobile, free to play is massive. You know, you pull people in, and if they like stuff that's in your game, if they like your game enough to even buy something in it, then you're finally going to start to make some money. Even Sigil, which I had launched in 2019, which is an unofficial 5th episode for Doom. When I was done with Sigil, I put it out there for free. I just uploaded it to the internet, and I was like, here it is. I just made a 5th episode. But I also released it as like a €6 downloadable with Buckethead soundtrack on it. And then I released 2 boxes, a big box and then a beast box, a really big one, that have a bunch of collectible stuff on the inside. And so if people like that stuff, if people are collecting enough and they want boxes that look like, you know, like cool Doom boxes, then they can buy those. And that's like, oh, I'm going to make some money because somebody actually wants to get Sigil and buy some other cool stuff. So it's kind of the same thing. You know, they're buying some other value that's not 2 more parts of something, but I'm giving them I'm giving away the thing that I'm actually boxing. So it actually worked out really, really well.
And someone in our chat is asking a little bit to do with everything that we've talked recently. He says, Doom was a great part and a big part of my childhood, as crazy as it sounds. And how do you feel about the impact that you took part in so many lives? People cosplaying Doom and making posters and making mods and just like running Doom on a pregnancy test. I mean, it's insane. How does it feel?
It is. I know. You know, it's you know, I don't even know what I would say. I don't know how to describe it because it's been 28 years now that when Doom came out and exploded, it was intense. Like, it was massive when it came out, yeah. And it was crazy, and that has just kept going on for decades.
Yeah.
Like nonstop, and it just gets bigger and bigger because more games keep coming out. They're badass, you know, they're super fun.
Super fun.
And I keep my fingers on the pulse of the community all the time, and I'm part of the community. I mean, I generate new content for the community the way the community generates their own content. So the things that Doom did, like it turned, you know, modding is a thing now. Like modding games is the thing. Online gaming, playing deathmatch. Deathmatch is the thing. Co-oping through games. You know, distribution as shareware, putting out a piece of your game for free and letting people test it. Speed running. Doom was the first speed running game. It invented speed running.
And speed running is like its own huge thing right now.
It is. It's massive. And you know, and if you talk about Quake, there's mouse look to look around in a 3D world, which is now every single game.
Yeah.
There's internet gameplay, internet multiplayer. There's machinima. You know, the Quake started machinima. It's in-game consoles. It's just we just put a lot of cool stuff in our game that we really wanted, and because we felt like we were our own audience, you know, for our own stuff. We put what we wanted in our own stuff, and we hoped that people would really like it. And I think that it has resonated with everybody for so many years that, you know, it's funny because I don't feel like I don't have like a big ego about any of it, because I'm just happy to see people being happy with the stuff that I made, and I just like talking to people who are part of that community and just love it, because I just like to see the fact that I made something that really fulfills people or gives them good memories, and keeps providing fun, you know? So yeah, I just, I don't have an ego about it. I just think it's really great to see that the community is still going.
I think it's very inspiring to hear you say all this, and I really want to know if you had the chance to tell something like young John Romero before he started this journey, something that he had to know, what would you say?
I would say make sure that when you start a company that you know your co-founders very, very, very well.
Okay, that's a very good one. It's not shade, it's real.
It is. It's not about id Software, because we had an amazing group of people there. It's like beyond that.
Yeah.
But you know, that's a really important lesson. You know, I have a business course on LinkedIn about how to run a game business, and that's like one of the earliest things is before you get into a business with somebody, you need to have worked with them already for a while before you own something with them, because it's like being married to somebody.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to take that information and we're going to share it with the audience later. I think it's great. We have so many questions. I'm so excited. A lot of people are asking, like, what were the games that really inspired you, or what were your favorite games in the 90s? In the 90s?
Yeah. Duke Nukem 3D, amazing game.
Amazing game.
Loved it. Outlaws. I loved Outlaws. I loved Dark Forces. You know, these are all shooters. Let's see, in the 90s, that's 90. So that's from 1990 on. I think Ecstatica was an awesome game, and you probably haven't heard about it.
No, I haven't.
But if you haven't heard about it, get on YouTube and watch videos of Ecstatica. It was such a great game. I loved it. It was hilarious. Little Big Adventure is another really fun game from back then. Alone in the Dark, obviously, was classic.
Yeah.
What other ones?
I do have another question.
Excellent.
Sure, go ahead. You mentioned so many shooters, and I'm not going to ask if you play Doom, because I know you have, and people that are watching this right now, there is a stream on YouTube of John playing Doom Eternal. If you search for it, you're going to find it, so go and look for it. But are you playing any other shooters right now?
Yeah, you know what? I have a stream. I wonder if it's online. You know, if not, I should totally make a new stream. But like the game that I really love, and I've been playing for 2 years now, is it's called Ghost Recon Breakpoint.
Okay.
And I'm a massive fan of the Ghost Recon series.
That's great. Any other shooters? That's the only one.
Well, Ultra Kill was really cool. It's so fast. There's oh geez, what is this other one? Steel. It's an indie. It's another indie shooter that's really puzzle based and really interesting. Let's see. Titanfall 2. Been going through that. Really nice. Really polished.
I do have.
Yeah, you know, Disco Elysium. Like, who's not playing that? That game is really amazing, and you know, it's really, really. What great design sense, you know, and visual design.
I have a question of my own. Have you ever played Counter-Strike?
Oh, hell yeah. Who did play Counter-Strike?
Do you play Counter-Strike right now?
Oh, I don't play it right now?
No!
I don't. It's funny. I was just talking to somebody today who plays Counter-Strike. Oh, he's my plumber. He came over to the house. A plumber came over to the house and started talking about Counter-Strike.
Great plumber, I mean.
I know.
Great service.
No, yeah. It's such a good game. You know, PUBG is.
Yeah.
I really had fun playing PUBG when it came out. God, you know, the world is so packed full of games, and they're so easy to get and play. And you just like bam, bam. If I had my Steam library open over here, I could just rattle off things that I jump into. Darkest Dungeon, you know,
Darkest Dungeon
Spire,
is
you name
so complicated.
I love it.
It's so hard. I mean, the aesthetic is awesome. It looks so good, but it's so hard to play.
It's Massacre. It's a
Yeah.
massacre game.
It's great game. If you guys in the chat don't know what we're talking about, I'm gonna send you the info later. Great game.
Yeah.
And talking about like the video game industry, what do you think about? If you want to talk about this, you can like say no about how toxic video game companies have become over the years, crunching teams and with toxic culture. And there are some other companies that are really trying to like stop with this cultural thing that has become out of the video game industry. What's your opinion on this?
Well, I think, a lot of it has to do with deadlines and companies that are, just kind of being ignorant of people's right to privacy and right to disconnect. And the thing is, it's kind of like Me Too. It is happening in the game industry right now. There's a lot of recognition that like this is not the way to treat people and generate profits. You'll make better games when you have really well-rested workers. And if you have a game that you're trying to ship and you don't have enough people and enough time, de-scope the game and make it smaller. Like take stuff out so you can finish it. Make that stuff DLC. Like it's not with the way that DLC works nowadays. There's nothing wrong with taking a chunk of a game that looks like it's going to make the deadline slip and just pull it out and just finish it later after launch. And either it comes out as a quality of life edition for free or it comes out as part of a DLC. I mean, people are used to post-launch content, so take stuff out if you got to get it out on time. Like de-scope the initial launch.
Definitely, but there's like this mindset that not only the video game industry, but the software industry in itself has taken this like the time to market is like the most important thing that we have, and in that like race to getting there before the rest, they don't think about like the people that are working in the products, and they don't think about how the technical difficulties they may like encounter in the way, because everything breaks all the time. It's like that, and we make estimations that they don't work, and it's like they decide to crunch their teams and overwork them a lot, and in the end, it's bad for the company and the product. Kind of what happened with Cyberpunk. Everyone was so hyped, and they were trying to make it to the deadline that they put out, and the project was too big for them, and it got out of hand. And it's such a shame because it was such a cool concept.
Yeah, and the team itself knew that it shouldn't have launched. I mean, those are the people you need to listen to. Listen to QA, the success of a game is determined by the amount of bugs in the game at launch. So, that's who you need to listen to and hold on to that game. Don't let it out unless you feel really confident that it's high quality. And when something comes out a little too early, a lot of times it is execs that are making those calls, and they don't even know if the quality is up there or not. They only care about the timing. So, it's also one of those things where I think we are now in the age of COVID, and we are in the age of remote work. And it is easier now than ever before for you to get another job somewhere else. So it may have been more difficult in the past, but if you feel like you're being crunched and you don't feel like your heart's in the project, then find another job like that, like it's not hard now.
Yeah.
So I think that there's going to be a little bit, there may be a little bit of backlash from people who are just going to go, you know what, I'm out. I'm going to go do something else where I don't have to kill myself.
Definitely, I agree. And I wanted to say something, and it just like slipped my mind. Why? Oh yeah, you mentioned before about indie games. Now that we're talking about this massive companies, the indie game industry has been growing steady and strong. Do you like any indie games that you're playing right now, or can you mention some indie game that really stood out to you?
Geez. Well, I'm very excited about a game called Celico. It looks amazing. It's actually like, a Doom is like a Doom mod. It's a really high quality Doom mod. So yeah, I remember what I do is I go to conferences and I get to see the indie showcases where the indies are showing off their games at these conferences, these really good, legit conferences. And I see these games, I'm just, some of them are just really, really good. And they're not released yet, which is great. I love seeing the pre-release stuff. There was a game that I've been following for years called Death Trash.
Death Trash.
And Death Trash.
Oh, it's very on brand for you.
And deathtrash.com. And so anyway, that game, I think he finally early accessed it, and it's such a funny game. The aesthetic is so great, it's got great, web shooting and everything in it. That game was great. It finally early accessed. There was a game called Lonely Mountains Downhill, which is about riding a bike downhill as fast as you can, and taking shortcuts, and it's just like very tricky to do. And I gave the guy a bunch of feedback when I saw it. I was just like, I love this game. It's so good, and so he finally released it, and I think it's doing pretty well. But yeah, there's so many good games, and so many indies out there, it's really great to see. I think that there's a new one I just heard about today called, what is it? It's Haunted Chocolatier, and it's in development right now, but it looks like exactly a kind of game I'd love to play. It's got the retro aesthetic, just it's got a great idea behind it. It just looks like it's being very well made. And like I could go on and on about a million indie games that are being developed that people are releasing in trailers and stuff. But yeah, there's just a flood of them, and it's great to see such quality now.
I also wanted to ask you a little about Romero Games, what you're doing right now, like professionally. We would very much like to hear about that.
Well, we are going to be releasing our first DLC for Empire of Sin this year, and the whole team has been working on it, and it's looking really good. We're very happy with it. I'm working on Sigil 2, and it's something I know that people have been looking forward to, and it will probably be coming out very similar to the way that it came out before. It'll be free and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome.
The cool thing is it'll be a lot bigger than Sigil because it's Doom 2.
Yeah.
That means it'll have a lot more Buckethead in it. So I'm very excited about that. And there's other projects I can't talk about that I'm working on that are really cool, and we'll be announcing things. So
we'll be looking forward to that. And do you think you'll ever get into maybe VR and these metaverses that are like starting to appear in various software platforms, so as to say?
Yeah, I've done some talking about like Oculus VR stuff. I don't spend a lot of time in VR, but like there's a game called Demio that's from Resolution Games that is really cool. It's like if you like to play D&D, this is like the best VR D&D game that you can play. And you can play with other people from anywhere in the world, and you wouldn't even know it. It is. It's like you just zoom in on the board, and it's like it's a whole dungeon with fire and stairs and monsters and stuff. And you use your hand like you would on a table in front of you with other people to move your character through a dungeon.
What's the name of the game?
Demio, Demeo. It's really cool.
It's so cool.
I'm also consulting on a project that's called the MSG Sphere. It's a giant location-based entertainment center in Las Vegas, and there's never been anything like it before. It's massive. If you just go look for it, if you Google it, you'll see what it is, and the kind of experiences that you can put in there are unique to anything that's ever been made.
I was also wondering, is there anything that you miss about how games or the experience of games like a couple of years back that has been lost in modern games?
No, everything's just gotten better. Games have gotten so much better. The thing is, like the latest Unreal Engine and Unity engines are so accessible for anybody to get started making games that you now have anybody who has an idea and has the time that they want to put in, they're able to share their vision with everybody in an indie space. And that provides such a flood of creativity into the world, and at a quality level, because these engines are quality, that like this has never been seen before. Like this didn't happen in the 80s, or really the 90s. It was hard to program stuff back then, but now it's incredible. And that kind of acceleration of creativity, it only means better things for everybody. Like really, as an audience of game players, this is the time to be alive, when so many options are available to you in genres that never existed 20, 30 years ago. It's like, now's the time to be playing everything that you can. And, it's just, if as a kid, I wish I was alive right now when I could actually see the amount of games. I probably wouldn't be a game dev if I was alive right now playing everything that was coming out, because it's all such cool stuff.
It's breaking my mind that you're saying this, because you're definitely, I mean, you're one of the people responsible for the games that we have today. Like,
I know.
It makes like no sense.
I know. I could clone, and I could just cocoon in a room and just live there playing everything.
Well, I mean,
That's pretty crazy.
you can still do it now. I mean, and maybe even one day you'll be able like to upload your mind into some robot and keep playing games for the rest of your life.
I would love to do that.
I would love to do that too. What's your stance on like the greater vision of transhumanism? I'm very interested on this.
Oh, I think it would be amazing. I'm totally 100% for that. I read tons of sci-fi, so this is an idea that's been around for a very long time. But yeah, if I could, at some point where I'm just like falling apart and I'm destroyed, I want to upload my brain in something and keep living on that way. That would be amazing.
Oh my God, my friends are going to laugh that I'm talking about this to you, because I'm obsessed with this topic. I'm so sorry to the people that are watching.
Yeah.
Okay.
More than human, yeah.
Yes, definitely. But going back to the questions, have you played any video games that have been developed in Argentina? I do know that we have a very small video game industry, but have you like seen anything that grabbed your interest?
I haven't looked. I see a ton of games, but they're not always like, hey, we're from Argentina, or we're from Chile. So I probably did see something really cool, but I didn't know that it was from Argentina.
And what would you give as advice to video game developers and designers that are starting in Argentina, where we have like a baby of a business? Here, we're not as big as in other countries. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say that the game industry is global at this point. It doesn't matter what country or city that you come from. When we started in software, we started in Shreveport, Louisiana, which is not the hotbed of game development. It wasn't any game development, really. What matters is that you have an idea that people have not seen and would probably really like, and that you have the focus and time and determination to get that game made so you can release it out to everybody. And like now, because it's global, you can launch on Steam. Steam is everywhere. It's not there's not like Steam Argentina. It's Steam. It's everywhere. And so when you put something up there, everyone's going to see it. When you put game trailers up on sites, everyone's going to see it. If your game is really interesting and unique, people will talk about it and pass your trailer around. This is how you get known, no matter what country you're from. Make cool stuff and get those trailers out and enter your game in indie contests. Get yourself in front of judges who can nominate you or give you a prize for the best whatever. and now you have free press, and now your game is on fire. You know, it's all about. It doesn't matter where you're coming from, where you're located at. It matters that you have a great idea no one has seen before. You make that thing and you put it out in the world. Everything else doesn't matter. And if you could just focus on that, do not embrace your limitations. There aren't any limitations. If you want to make a game, it's up to your personal creativity to make that thing. No one's holding you back. No one's telling you not to do it. If you can't do something, then you learn it. Like, why can't you learn something? It's a self-limitation. If, like building a computer, if you can't build a computer, other people build computers. Why can't you build a computer? Well, the only answer there is because I don't care. Because if you do care, you will learn how to build a computer, right? So it's really like, if you want, you define your goal and learn everything that it takes to reach it.
I have a question from people in the chat. They are asking, what is harder, having to design with a set of hard technological constraints, or having to design knowing that you have virtually unlimited computer power?
I wouldn't say either of those is hard, because when you're designing against constraints, like designers, a lot of times are constrained no matter what. Like, when I'm going to make a game, I need to know how long how long do I have to develop this game? What is the audience? What is the genre? What is whatever? Like, there's all these things. I'm now getting information back, and I'm now constraining this design based on all of the input. So constraints are happening no matter what. If you come up with an idea on your own and there aren't any constraints because you're going to make this game for as long as it takes, I don't see the problem there, because as a designer, you will need to create something that people can see that they can finish, because like, people are about that. Like, people are into bite-sized entertainment chunks. They don't feel like most people can eat up 6 hours a day in a game. So you need to, as a game designer, you have to scope your play sessions down to what people can actually achieve. Like, well, how much can people achieve in, 10 minutes? Can you make it an entire game out of a bunch of 10-minute successes? Because that's kind of where we're at now. And that feels good for a lot of people. Like, even a Baldur's Gate that's like, 500 hours, as long as you have enough 10-minute successes in there, people love doing that. But you got to break it down, and then you got to figure out how much of that you're going to make. So it doesn't matter what the hardware constraints are. That just adds even more like limitations to the way you're going to do stuff. But it's not hard. It's just information.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that answer. There's someone in the chat asking, could you tell us, please, the meaning of the cheats IDKFA and IDDQD letters?
Well, KFA is killer effing ammo. That gives you all of the ammo and the keys and everything. And then IDDQD, the ID at the beginning is id, so that kind of, you can throw that away, and then everything after that is, what does that mean? DQD stands for Delta Q Delta, and Delta Q Delta was a made-up fraternity that Dave Taylor had when he was in college. And the fraternity was for just him and his friends. And when they were going to fail a class because they screwed around, like playing games too much or doing other stuff instead of of schoolwork, they would quit the class so they couldn't get a grade. And that's what they call Delta Q Deltas, Delta quit Delta. And that's what that meant. And IDDQD is for invulnerability. They're not going to get a bad grade. They're invulnerable, right?
That's so cool. Thank you so much. We have so many questions. There are a couple that people are going to be very sad that I don't ask, so maybe some other time. If you catch my drift.
Yeah.
You guys,
answer these.
I have an inside joke with John Romero. Just saying.
Yeah.
People are asking a lot about the adaptation of the Doom in the movie. what do you think about it?
No.
I mean, you weren't really involved, right?
No, and no one that did was involved either. That's why it's a no. You know, the thing is that the movie came out in 2006, and we had already licensed the rights in 1994 to Universal to Ivan Reitman, who did Ghostbusters and a bunch of other cool movies. He had the chance to take it and do something with it, but nope. That thing probably lapsed after 10 years, and then it got picked up by, I think, Fox or somebody, and then they decided to make the thing that came out in 2006. And then it got worse, and they made Doom Annihilation. So, yeah, so far, bad results on Doom movies.
I have one very, very last question. Today we're going to be making a Doom competition at night. People in the chat are asking if you want to play.
Play Doom?
Yeah, with them. I think it's
Which Doom?
I'm not sure actually which Doom we're going to be playing. I think maybe 2016? Arcade mode maybe? I'm not sure. But I may be lying, so... We are almost up with time. Is there anything you would like to say to the people that are watching right now? A lot of people starting in the video game industry, a lot of developers that are watching us right now.
Okay, if you, especially like there's game developers that are out there that may not have heard the story about how we made id Software and made our games. If you have heard of the book Masters of Doom, it's a really great book to read for people who feel like they are kind of burnt out making games, or people who are very excited to get into making games, because it's an inspirational book to a lot of people who are in game dev or want to join game dev, because people who read the book feel like they can do it. They can do what we did, because it's explained very clearly how we did it. Yeah. And it's just like, follow those same footsteps. It's time, you know, it's time and having a ton of fun making stuff. And that vibe comes across in that book. So you can download it. Will Wheaton did the audiobook of it. You know, and it's a really fun book to read. So many funny stories and stuff are in there. It's, you know, that actually would be worth making a movie after.
Okay, wait. I'm not gonna... We have a couple more questions that are coming in.
All right.
I'm sorry. Okay, this is a very nice question. During development, you listened to 9 Inch Nails solo music. Did you listen to Possessed in this time?
Listen to what?
Possessed.
Processed?
I don't know.
Possessed.
Possessed.
Possessed. No, I've never heard of Possessed. No. What we did, like, if we're talking about Doom, there was a lot of Alice in Chains during Doom, especially Dirt. You know, and before Dirt, you know, when we were making Wolfenstein and those other games, lots of 80s metal, Black Sabbath, you name it, Judas Priest, you know, just tons and tons of stuff. We used to have a stereo that that we would, every day was somebody else's day to play music. So when it was my day, 80s metal. When it was John Carmack's day, we're listening to Prince, Concrete Blonde, Iggy Pop, you know, like all kinds of stuff that he listened to. Tom loved the Beatles, Kate Bush, you know, so each person, like, you know, Adrian Pantera, Slayer, you know, so each person would be listening to their own type of music. So we all got to really hear a really cool mix of stuff.
I'm interested in the 9 Inch Nails part of the question. Do you still listen to them? Were you always a fan? How was it like to reach out to them and say, like, hey, do you want to make music for games? Yeah,
so the biggest fans in the office was, I think, John Carmack and American. They were really big fans. And 9 Inch Nails were really big fans of Doom. And we had an agent that managed us, and they managed some Nine Inch Nails, and that agent decided to like introduce them to us. And when that happened, it was like, hey, so you want to make music for our next game? And Trent's was like, that would be really cool. So we hung out, we had dinner, you know, we did this multiple times, and he was totally into it. But, you know, he has a touring schedule and all that kind of stuff. So luckily we contacted him really early in our process. So he had lots of time to get that done. And Chris Vrenna did a lot of the work, making sure that when Trent was busy, Chris would kind of move along the music. So we finally did get it all done, and it was really amazing. The music they did for Quake is just excellent.
And one last question that just like popped into my mind that I would very like you to talk about. You're married, and you're married to someone that is also a game developer and a designer.
Yeah.
I'm very interested on how do you guys talk about this? Does he help in your creative process? Do you fight about the games? How does it work?
Geez, well, there are different projects that we work on, but let's say Empire Sin, we're working on Empire Sin with our entire team. Empire Sin is Brenda's game. That's her idea, and she's the game director, which means she directs everything on the game. Every decision is being made by her. The whole team is being led by her. So, she does all that stuff, and then I do my part on the project. And if she doesn't like something that I've done on it, I change it. You know, it's because it's her game, it's her idea. Like, I wouldn't want to have my game idea that I'm having developed by a team, and people on the team don't want to change the thing I'm telling them to change because I don't like it. Like, that's the whole idea, is for that vision to get out there. And so everybody on the team's job is to facilitate the vision, and the game director who has that vision also shares the creativity, the creative responsibility with the team to put their own ideas in, because we need the team to actually be creative as well, like very creative and kind of run with stuff. So we work really well together. If there's any kind of creative block or something that is she doesn't like or I don't like, we totally talk about it and decide what is a good solution. And usually the solution is something that modifies the game to a point where we both still really like the game, and we added a thing to it that makes it work for both of us. And that's like a really great way to solve design issues, not to just cut something out, but to actually add to it to fix it. But yeah, we've done it multiple times, and we've been making games next to each other for 11 years now, every day. Like, we're like right next to each other. So so it works out really well. And
talking about this of solving issues in the process of game design, would you share a little about the process and when you're blocked? Like, how do you face it? What's your process for dealing with difficulties?
Jeez, well, being blocked, I just am not blocked is the thing. I think it's just years of making games and plowing through things. And as a programmer, programmers run into blocks constantly. Like, that's what being a programmer is hitting walls and having to climb those walls, get over them, and go hit the next wall. Like, that is all coding is. And to be used to that and know how to like get through that creatively, if there is an issue where I can't figure out blah, it's like, well, obviously I'm going to solve this. Like, I'm not going to now, because I'm doing design, stop and not solve it. Where in programming, I absolutely do solve it. And that's a technical thing that's actually harder than a design thing. So I just get through it. And sometimes I'll just ask other people for their idea, or like, what do you think about this? And just kind of explain what I'm thinking. and they'll come out with something I never would have thought of because it comes from some other thing that they saw somewhere. But getting input and working with a team really helps solve any kind of blocks that you may have. But also just knowing that you have to plow through it to get to the next thing. It's a dependency that must be solved to get to the next phase of your design.
Awesome. That is, I mean, I really envy like all the experience you have in the software development industry. It's so helpful, everything you've been telling us. And I was wondering a little about how the industry is in Ireland. Right now you're in Ireland and Romero Games is over there. What about the industry there?
Well, the industry is pretty small, but there are 50 plus games in the country, game devs in the country. EA is here. They have 400 people at the edge of town in Galway. In Dublin, we have a couple big game companies there that are owned by companies in California. At least one of them is owned by a company in California. And something amazing just happened here in Ireland that's gonna hit, I believe, next year, which is a tax credit that's 32% on game development. So
Wow.
It's huge. It's bigger than the UK, and it's bigger than France's tax cut. So get ready. We're getting ready for like an influx of lots of video game investment here because of the amazing tax incentive compared to the other countries. So it's brand new. It's happening next year, and we're really happy about that. And because Ireland's not so huge with game dev, it feels like the early industry in the 80s still. Like very excited people sharing information, people meeting up all the time, lots of game jams. Like one of the cool things that they do in Ireland is all of the universities in Ireland that have a game program, they have a game competition. It's called Gamesflaw, and they all submit their games to judges for judging which school had the best game of all games made in the country. So it's really cool because it's a small enough country that we can do that.
That's so cool.
But there's a lot of excitement.
So exciting, and we are looking forward to see what's coming up with Romero Games. And now our time's up. Our questions are done. I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and I'm so grateful for sharing all of your experience. Thank you for participating. It was a lovely time. I'd love to talk to you again. I think the people will go and watch all of the streams and all of the data that you've been dropping. I'm going to share everything. We are very, very grateful.
Well, thank you for having me here. It's always fun to talk.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, take it easy. Bye.
Bueno, gente, eso fue todo. Los dejo con el resto del track. Yo no puedo más de la emoción. Me voy a morir a algún lado. Nos vemos.
Vamos a nerdear.